excited to hear from Ainsley. And we are lucky enough to also have Afira attending today, who wants to introduce Ainsley and let us know what she knows about her prior to her speaking. So Afira, go ahead and take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me today. It's been a while, and I wanted to introduce our speaker, Ainsley Schwerr. She and I actually haven't formally met, but we connected on LinkedIn. I heard what a great person you were, and so Dan Hunt kind of hunted her down, and so really happy to have you here with us today. Ainsley is a 2019 graduate of Normandale Community College with an associate's degree and an emphasis on global and environmental studies. So plans, it sounds like, changed during the pandemic. And so especially with her having a genetic immune deficiency disorder. After deferring college for a year, she decided to try to give back and took a gap year and took a position with Americorps. She's currently working at Normandale as a Student Resources Center coordinator, where she connects students to resources to meet their basic needs, like housing, food, healthcare. She feels it's a great way to spend a gap year while giving back to the community that helped her become the young woman she is today. And we'd love to hear more about that, Ainsley. Welcome.
I'd like to say thank you, everyone, so much for having me here. I am so honored to be here speaking to you all. While I've obviously heard of Rotary International, I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't really understand your organization and its mission. After learning more about it, I can say that I'm even more excited to be here. From my perspective, you have one of the best mission statements I've ever heard. People of action. I love it. I also love the variety of projects you all are focusing on. Promoting peace, fighting disease, saving mothers and children, providing clean water, growing local economies, and as you'll hear, the two most closely aligned with my passions, supporting education and protecting the environment. I was told that you all are interested in learning more about me, some of my decisions that have been affected by the pandemic, and a bit about my perspective as a young person in today's world. With that, let me tell you a bit about myself. My name is Ainsley Schwerr. I'm 19 years old, and I currently live in Eagan, Minnesota. And as I mentioned, I'll be telling you about the world according to me. I live with my mom, Marnie, and my brother, Ryan, who is 17 years old. My brother and I are very close, which is kind of amazing considering we have literally lived, worked, and schooled together our whole lives. We still like each other. I will admit, though, I'm a bit disappointed and more than a little envious that after I stopped growing, my baby brother kept growing and growing and growing. It is really not fun being nearly a foot shorter than your younger sibling. I've been blessed to have a relatively privileged life with very few obstacles or barriers, unlike many of my generation. As my mother's told us repeatedly, with great gifts comes great responsibility. I've tried my best to give back, and I see this as a driving mission for my life. In that respect, I'm not unlike many of my generation. Not only am I a member of those called Gen Z, but I've worked for my mother's business strategy consulting firm since I was 15. In this capacity, I've helped with much generational research and have learned a lot. Now, I get that most of you probably think of my generation as represented in this picture, all of us attached to our phones as if it were an appendage. But there's a very real reason for that. We are the very first digital native generation. We've never lived in a world where the internet didn't exist. Because we've grown up in a world of wired connectivity, global events actively have and continue to influence how we see and react to the world. For me personally, that means the majority of my music comes from Korea, Japan, China, Spain, and Latin and South America. Some of my favorite TV shows are actually from Thailand, Vietnam, the Philippines, India, and the UK. And my absolute favorite sport to watch is tennis, a global sport with players and tournaments located all over the world. We as Gen Z, are comfortable using our devices as ways to keep up with our social circles, to offer much of our entertainment, to learn as our educational institutions have gone online, and even to advocate for social change. We will be the most racially and ethnically diverse generation, with 48% of us being non-white, according to Pew Research Center. But we have a different view of diversity. We don't necessarily tolerate or accept diversity. We expect it. It's our life experience. We don't remember a time when there wasn't an African-American president or a woman who wasn't a serious contender for office. But we've dealt with a lot this year. Those my age in particular lost their senior year in high school. No final year activities, no prom, no formal graduation ceremony, and no celebration with our friends. Some, like me, had to defer their dreams of college, while those who did go on to school found it far different than the college experience of every other generation, since for most it meant swapping out a dorm room for the bedroom they grew up in. The pandemic and Black Lives Matter will most likely be two of the most impactful events of my generation. But these events have created mistrust in our institutions. Most research shows that it is lower than any generation before us. Police, the US government, and those who are in power, the criminal justice system, and the news media all rate low in levels of trust. We are less optimistic about our future, but we do believe we can help shape it. And that's why my generation needs to be aware of organizations like yours, who can help us channel our ambitions and focus our energies. With that overview of my generation, let me tell you a little bit about me specifically. My brother and I were born with a genetic immune deficiency disorder. Rather than have us take the recommended drugs as babies, similar to the drugs given to HIV patients, my parents decided to keep us home and closely monitor our overall health with minimal exposure to the outside world. My mother focused on managing our food, liquid intake, vitamins, exercise, really everything. And while we were really sick for most of our first 5 years, our immune system slowly improved. So when the time came to go to school, we were really excited. But after only a year and a half, most of which we spent homesick, we realized our systems weren't yet good enough to combat the petri dish that is an elementary school building. So my mother quit her job, launched a virtual consulting agency from home, and began homeschooling my brother and I when I was in 2nd grade and he was in 1st. We were disappointed at first and missed our friends and the fun we had at school. We didn't realize at the time what a gift we'd been given. We got to go to school in our PJs. We often brought friends, as you see here, to school with us. We were able to move through subjects as fast or slow as we wanted. We both love history and spend a lot of time on it. I especially fell in love with mythology. Just ask me anything about Norse, Greek, or Roman mythology. I was able to study it at a depth not possible in a regular school setting. We learned multiplication outside on the driveway, where my mom drew a huge times table in chalk and quizzed us. The first one to bounce their ball on the right answer won that round. Did you know competition makes memorization go much faster? We learned fractions by cutting pieces of a real pie. And because she went to school to be an engineer, we did a lot of science experiments. We even have the burn tabletop to prove it. When we read Harry Potter, we learned about Latin. It was, of course, the basis for most of their spells. When our mom told us that Latin was sort of a secret code to the English language, we were intrigued. And when she explained that astra means sky and nauta means sailor, so that astronaut literally means sky sailor, we were hooked. We decided we wanted to know more and ended up spending 4 years learning Latin. I decided to review and reteach myself Latin this year to continue improving my language skills. But most importantly, she taught us her own ABCs. Of life, I guess. The first was be active. And by that, she meant get involved and get moving. I certainly took those to heart. By the time I was in middle school, I was a 4-sport athlete. I swam on a competitive homeschool swim team, and I played volleyball, basketball, and baseball on our local middle school's traveling teams. I played in our church's handbell choir, sang in the choir, played French horn, was a member of our church's liturgical dance group, and was very active in 4-H. By the time we got to high school, my mother asked if we wanted to go back to school or continue homeschooling. The decision was easy. From our perspective, we got the best of both worlds. We were able to have a say in the subjects we studied, as well as the breadth and depth that we studied them with homeschooling, while still being able to participate in our local school's clubs, teams, and organizations. And that we did. I competed in robotics in middle and high school, was on the speech team competing in informative speaking, competed in DECA and BPA, Business Professionals of America, made it onto the varsity competition cheer team my first year, and got to compete at nationals held in Disney World. I also participated in Spanish club and mock trial. My mother also thought it was important we worked. We both helped out at her consulting firm, me as a research assistant and my brother as a junior analyst and tech advisor starting in middle school. I also worked for the FDA as a tobacco compliance inspector. It's a fancy title for undercover narc. From 1 month after my 16th birthday to 1 month before my 18th birthday, I spent 1 day a week going into smoke shops, gas stations, liquor stores, bars, and anywhere else that sold tobacco products, testing compliance by trying to buy cigarettes and vaping products. The next was be buoyant. Don't let things keep you down. I think of this as keeping a positive attitude regardless of how bad things get. Whenever I experience the swirlies, as my mom calls them, I do 3 things. First, get out of your head. I do this by immersing myself in some of my favorite music playlists. Second, put it in perspective. Essentially, I weigh the pros and cons of my possible actions. And finally, I focus on the solution rather than the problem. My brother and I were taught that an essential part of maturing is learning to care for and about more than just yourself and your needs. It's important to be part of something bigger than yourself and demonstrate your commitment by caring by helping people as often and with as many of your gifts as possible every single day. I like to volunteer, and I do so often. I'm actively involved in my church, and I'm also very active in 4-H. I've been the Dakota County 4-H Federation president for 2 years and a county ambassador for 4. I was a member of the executive board and was a youth representative on the University of Minnesota Extension Advisory Council. I've been an OSD instructor where I teach elementary age children about the dangers of cigarettes and alcohol, and have participated in fundraising for Kids in Kinship. I'm also very interested in doing my civic duty, and my family has lobbied at the state capitol for several years on behalf of 4-H and the Minnesota Historical Society. We've been lucky enough to meet several senators, including Amy Klobuchar, and congressmen who listened as we told them why these organizations were important to us and why they needed to be adequately funded. My brother and I also created a service group with a bunch of our friends and named it We Teens. We became involved with We Charities in 2011 when one of my mother's clients told us about them because he sat on their board. Free the Children was started in 1995 by Craig Kielburger after he read a newspaper article about a 12-year-old boy in Pakistan who was murdered for speaking out against child labor. He and his brother have worked tirelessly since, eventually morphing their cause into We Charities, which is predicated on the belief that everyone, especially young adults, can make a difference. They have held huge annual events across Canada, and Minnesota was one of the first states to host a We Day celebration. These events feature many celebrities and notables. The catch is that you can't buy tickets to the event. You must perform volunteer acts, both global and local, to earn your way in. We were honored to attend the first We Day, along with 18,000 other kids at the Xcel Energy Center. Just some of the celebrities included Carly Rae Jepsen, Demi Lovato, the Jonas Brothers, Governor Dayton, Barbara Pierce Bush, Vikings players Mia Farrow, Martin Luther King III, Queen Noor of Jordan, Jack Jablonski, and the most inspiring speaker, Spencer West. He is a double amputee who climbed Mount Kilimanjaro on his hands and in his wheelchair, and he tells the message of being able to do anything you set your mind to. We were also excited to get to meet the Kielburger brothers, as well as Dean Phillips, now Congressman Phillips, and his sister Hutton, who organized the initial event. That fall marked our first annual We Scare Hunger food drive among 75 neighborhood homes. Instead of trick-or-treating, we stopped by Halloween evening to pick up food donations. We've always had fun matching our costumes, but our favorite was probably the one on the bottom left of the screen. My brother dressed up as the 70s, and I dressed up as the 80s. You wouldn't believe how many times that night someone opened up their door and yelled to their husband, "Hey, Bill, come here. This kid looks just like you did." Due to the generosity of our neighborhood, my brother and I have been able to collect and contribute over 2 tons of food to our church's food shelf since 2013. It was this effort, as well as others, that prompted We Charities to ask me to be a Kid Celeb speaker at the next Minnesota We Day. Unfortunately, it was of course canceled. I hope to be able to participate once it's rescheduled. Do your best was another mantra in our household. My mother didn't necessarily cut us a break just because we got a good grade on something or won an award if she didn't think we'd put our total effort into it. But on the flip side, we were strongly encouraged to try things, even if we weren't good at them or didn't succeed right away. Our efforts were always supported as long as we'd done our best. This mentality meant we were often successful at what we participated in. I was honored to receive the Key Award. It is 4-H's highest honor and is similar to the Eagle Award in Boy Scouts. As a matter of fact, I was presented my award and gave my acceptance speech at a Rotary meeting. And finally, we were taught to educate ourselves. I think that was the greatest gift we were given with homeschooling. Knowledge wasn't something that was dependent upon a teacher to give us. We got to decide what interested us and could come up with non-traditional ways to learn about it. After taking a geography course in middle school, I really wanted to learn more. So I found a high school cultural geography book and continued learning. I downloaded some fun geography apps like Stack the States, Stack the Countries, and GeoBee, and played, all while learning. I watched a lot of global videos to get a better understanding of various areas and cultures. This led me to study global religions to better understand the differences between countries and faiths. My former interest in history served me well to understand the history behind some of the conflicts and the current issues and events. But all of this was done outside of my class schedule and just because I was interested. I was able to drive the process and find the resources myself. Now, another advantage of being homeschooled is that we were able to move through material more quickly. Therefore, we were able to take advantage of a wonderful program called Post-Secondary Enrollment Option, or PSEO for short. PSEO allows students who have the necessary standardized test scores and good enough grades to dual enroll in high school and college. Since most of my high school classes were complete by the end of my sophomore year, I was able to enroll full-time at Normandale Community College the fall of my junior year. That's me on the left on my first day of college. This program was such a blessing for me. While I have a wonderful group of friends I socialized with and was very active in many volunteer and academic activities, I still hadn't experienced learning in a traditional environment. I loved the exchange with other students and my professors during class. I had fun being part of the college culture and participating in new activities. I joined the Creative Writing Club, and some of my poetry was published in their spring magazine. I joined the Asian Student Alliance and was introduced firsthand to many of the cultures I'd been studying. I became a presidential ambassador for Normandale, and after my first semester, I was inducted into Phi Theta Kappa, the National Honor Society for two-year colleges. I became very involved in this organization, eventually becoming the Vice President of Leadership and leading Normandale to regional second place finish for our college project, which was about food insecurity on campus. All of this education and experience led to my decision to choose a career goal of corporate environmental sustainability. My hope is to better the world we live in by helping companies become more sustainable by switching to renewable energy sources. While substantial change will need individuals and legislators supporting this cause, I believe it will be the international corporations who have the best chance at turning the tide against climate change. I intend to be a leader in that movement that will ultimately help all of us on the planet. And so, spring 2020, I graduated with my high school diploma as well as an associate's degree from Normandale Community College. I graduated with honors and with a concentration in environmental and global studies. But amidst a pandemic, it wasn't your normal graduation. We listened to an amazing band prelude performed from nearly 50 different households. We listened online to President Esther deliver her commencement address. And instead of walking across the stage, my family and friends, all watching online, saw my graduation placard appear on the screen and symbolize that commencement walk. But it wasn't just me. Seniors across the country had non-traditional graduations. There were drive-by diploma deliveries, graduation parades, and some of the most interesting senior pictures you will ever see. I was lucky that I had already decided on where to attend college before the pandemic hit. I only applied to one college, my preferred college, Hamline University. There, I'd found the culture and environment I was looking for. I love the small campus, small classes, the social activism vibe, the supportive nature of participating in multiple activities, and the ability to conduct research with professors as an undergraduate. While their majors weren't a perfect fit for my future goals, I was won over by the college experience I would get. And so I became a future Piper as well as a family disappointment. You see, we're a Gopher family, big time. Both my parents went to the U, and we grew up watching and attending Gopher sporting events, not just one or two sports, but all of these sports. Football, basketball, baseball, hockey, volleyball, wrestling, gymnastics, the list goes on. We attended physics shows at the U and would often just go up and walk around campus and hang out. All of this brainwashing worked really well on my brother. He has been bleeding maroon and gold since birth and only plans to apply there for college. So I became the black sheep of the family. It's a good thing they like me anyway. But the pandemic meant that I had to reassess my educational plans. Because we are still at a higher risk of infection and have multiple family members who are immunocompromised, I made the difficult decision to defer my college experience. Hamline was wonderful about it and kept all of my merit and academic scholarships intact. But to do so, I wasn't able to take classes anywhere else. I'd already made my way through Netflix and Hulu, so I looked around for something constructive to do with my year off. Once I announced my decision, several staff from Normandale directed me to Americorps, the equivalent of the Domestic Peace Corps. They have a VISTA program, Volunteers in Service to America, and Normandale needed a new VISTA to help manage their Student Resource Center. So I became a full-time working girl. I am thrilled to have the opportunity to give back to the community that helped me grow into the person I am today. I've been able to see firsthand the impact our resources have made on our students' lives. I will never forget at my very first food drive when one student turned to his roommate while he was picking up broccoli and pineapple and apples and said, "I can't wait to get home and cook. It's been months since we had anything that wasn't out of a can." When I was hired, Normandale's marketing department sent out a press release announcing my employment. They included the fact that I was a PSEO student, thinking that might garner some media attention. We were surprised that what actually received a lot of attention was the fact that I decided to forego college since my first choice was continuing to offer in-person classes, which I wasn't comfortable with. In short, I became the poster child for the pandemic-instigated gap year. I made the front page of the Pioneer Press this last September. I was also featured in the Inspired section of the Star Tribune and was on the front page of the Bloomington Sun Current. I was interviewed by the Care 11 TV station for a feature story they did on how the pandemic has affected college students. And I was included in the Bloomington Brief, a publication sent quarterly to nearly 100,000 households and companies in the city of Bloomington. What was especially great about this publication is that they allowed me to ask for donations to help assist many students are in need of housing, health, transportation, and food help. While we had a set budget, it certainly didn't account for the increased need related to the pandemic. Our campus cupboard is getting a lot of use, considering there are no in-person classes at the moment. We have been struggling to keep the shelves stocked, especially with hygiene items, so the donations have helped tremendously. With the pandemic continuing to rage on, I find myself on a new college journey. Hamlin is still planning to offer in-person classes next fall, which is still not conducive to my family's health issues. So, much to my family's excitement, I am now planning to attend the University of Minnesota, which will allow me to take online classes until I'm comfortable attending them in person. Go Gophers! While I still don't know what the future holds for me, I am excited to continue down this new pathway towards my goals. Thank you so much for having me here to present this morning. Are there any questions?
Ainsley, thank you. I got a number of questions here. First of all, you're an amazing public speaker, let alone inspirational. Thank you. First question is from our Rotary member, Paul Nelson. How is your immune situation now? And are you able to participate in church and school extracurricular activities? I assume he means in person.
Well, my immune system is a lot better, and I was able to participate in extracurriculars for high school. With the pandemic, I am not currently comfortable leaving the house much. So the best part about this position is that it is entirely remote. So as of right now, I have been opting out of most of my extracurriculars. I do everything online possible.
Is your well, a couple follow-up questions on you having to be, you and your family having to be isolated. do you or your brother ever go out in public during the pandemic?
Yes, we do occasionally, but we just always wear masks, often wear gloves, and minimize contact as much as possible.
So for instance, you might go to the grocery store?
Mm-hmm. Okay. About once a month, I will make my way outside. My brother and I have immune deficiencies, but they're slightly different. So mine is a little closer to respiratory, so I choose not to go out because I'm a little more scared of COVID.
And as wonderful as you seem, you being cooped up in your family, at times you must get on each other's nerves, but you must have, and your brother must have, unique ways of dealing with it. Can you share that with us?
Sure. Well, we were lucky that pre-pandemic, we had a lot of experience with being home all the time and almost exclusively dealing with each other. So while we've had our rough spots, for the most part, we've been able to get over it pretty quickly because it's not necessarily new for us. Over the summer, especially if we really just couldn't deal with each other, we both love biking. So we'd go on like a 5-mile bike ride and just get out of the house and get away for a while. Otherwise, it's mostly just retreat into the bedroom, with whichever dog is closest, and just cool down.
Is your brother involved doing PSEO?
Yes, he is.
Which reminds me, I thought there was a typo in the bio you sent me, and I thought you meant to say you graduated from Normandale in 2019. You graduated when you were 19.
Yes.
Right. So I changed that. My apologies. Afira has a question. Are there any projects you're involved in that our Rotary Club can help with?
Well, specifically at Normandale, as I mentioned in my speech, we have mostly been trying to just keep resources open for students and be as accommodating as possible because we know how difficult this is. So like I said, donations for our campus cupboard, because my position is completely remote. We used to have a physical space for a resource center, but we closed it down because it's not large enough to have resources, have staff, and have students in there without infringing on social distancing. So right now we exclusively are using the campus cupboard for all of our food, non-perishables, and recently fresh food. and all of our hygiene items. So we really appreciate donations, both monetary and item-wise, so that we can make sure that it's stocked so that the students who do come to campus, because they need these resources, have access to them.
So, excuse me, our membership is a wide spectrum of how old our children are. Some of our members have children in their 40s. Some of our members have children who are preschool. Can you give a little advice on how to get your kids more active in volunteer activities?
In my family, it was something we did as a family. So maybe find volunteer activities that you can do as a family to spread, whether there is a huge generational gap or not, but something you can all do together to have that family bonding time while also giving back to your church, giving back to your community, wherever you prefer to volunteer.
So I'm gonna ask you one more question, and then I've got a couple of things I want to add, and then our president will close the meeting. Does your brother express to you his admiration of you and what you've accomplished in your life?
Not with words, but as brothers typically don't. But absolutely, like I said, we are surprisingly close and we get along really well. So we both absolutely admire each other, and he is just as successful. He was actually far more successful than I ever was in speech, and he's very good at debate. So we both admire each other's strong suits because we have such complementary personalities.
Yeah. So two things. One, Fira, thank you for finding Ainsley and bringing her to the attention of the program committee. And I urge our other members to keep their eyes out for speakers. I don't know if you'll be able to top what Fira did here, bringing Ainsley, but you can try. And then finally, Ainsley, you and I met on a Zoom call. We probably talked 3-4 weeks ago for the first time. And then at the very end of the call, I said, promise me you'll go say something to your mother and tell the members what I told you.
Dan wanted me to, he specifically asked who raised me because they deserved a lot of credit. So I made sure to run back and tell my mother that she did a fantastic job.
Ainsley, thank you very much. This has been spectacular.
Thank you so much, Dan. And thank you everyone for having me. It was truly an honor.
Thank you, Ainsley. And I believe your mother is still on. Marnie, are you still on? Can you unmute yourself so
I'm here.
say thank you? And what was primarily your main focus with your children to create such a successful life for them and yourself?
Well, first, let me say thank you for saying that. But truly, I always joke that, God gives you what you can handle. And clearly I couldn't handle very much because I got really great kids. So I really lucked out that way. But with the homeschooling, it was never in our plan. We were never planning to do that. It happened, but we made the best of it. And I think my biggest plan was I really wanted them to be independent. I wanted them to learn how to do things themselves. And I wanted to, and she mentioned in her speech, we really focused in our family about being part of something bigger than yourself. And so it was easier to homeschool. I have so much admiration for these families that homeschool, 8 kids over 12 years. I had 2 that were close enough in age that I could bring them both along at the same time. So that made life easier for me as well. And of course, again, they wanted to be homeschooled and they wanted to learn. So that made life a lot easier.
Well, thank you for all that you've done to raise 2 such incredible individuals, because I know it does take a lot of sacrifice as well. And so just kudos, hats off. What an amazing example of what can be done given your the midst of what's going on here in our world. I couldn't have thought of a better example of the great things that can come from the current situation, so thank you both again. I'm still kind of trying to figure out how I can get either you or Ainsley to join our club and become a Rotarian, because you guys are like built for this. We're all kind of cut from the same cloth. That's how I see it. So no, a lot of your values and things that you do focus on, we are as well. So we are just tickled to see you today. Thank you so much for getting up early and being here with us. I'm just, again, blown away. So yes, if anybody else can find another speaker, go for it. But thank you again. This has been recorded. So if anybody wants to share what a, positive message for parents, homeschooling, young people in the world today, how they find their way and happily, successfully, and healthily, is that a word? But anyways, all right, I'll just stop. I can go on and on, but thanks again, everybody. Thank you again so much for joining us this morning. We look forward to seeing you again next week. And remember, Rotary opens opportunities. Look for them. They're there every day. Thanks again, everybody. Enjoy your day.
Thank you.